it's just a tragic accident. Like tragic accidents just happen all the time in Carroll County. I'm just saying. It's a very, very unlucky place to live. They dropped the charges because it was accidental. You don't accidentally run over somebody and back up and try to do it again. Jeez. Let's start from the beginning as investigative reporters, right? So you would ask the questions who, what, where, when, and why. Should be easy, right? Of course it is. Yes, I know, you're innocent until proven guilty, but what good does that do you if you are not alive? Well, hello, my silky friends. I hope you had a very, very Merry Christmas. I did. I actually had one of the best Christmases I've had in a while. And so you're going to let me say hello to everybody. I highlighted some of your comments, but, and Kib Kitty, if you can't make it in, that's okay. There we go. Hello, Megan Z. How you doing? Mother of Dragons, Just Deb. I know a lot of people catch stuff on the replay because, and especially at the holidays, y'all never. And some of you message me and say, "I'm so sorry, I missed the live." You don't have to do that, okay? You just don't. It's okay. I've got Yolie in the background. Hello, Sleuthy Goosey. I don't know if you've heard of this case that we're going to talk about, but and I'm going to let Yolie kind of tell us about herself, but she worked on this case, and this is crazy, just crazy. Hey, Professor Pug. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. I just want to say hello to all you early birds that are here at the beginning. I hope you all have, plans for New Year's. My plan is to be in my pajamas. My son says no. Is this too dark? Because, I can't tell. I've got another light here, but my son gave me this big monitor for Christmas, but the problem is my computer sucks. And sometimes it goes out, but I can still see it on the small screen. So it blinks. So if you get some light flashes, don't think you're having a brain aneurysm or something like that. It's me. I'm the problem. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up Yolie. Hello.
Hi there. How
Hey,
are you?
I'm good. And Yolie is an attorney, so you should know that. And I'm going to let me just tell you, I met Yolie on Evil CJ's show. And if you have not subscribed to Evil CJ, what are you doing? He covers the Idaho 4 case very, very heavily. And he does other stuff too. So, but check him out. And so we met there. And she was in the last live. If y'all were in that one, we were talking about body parts. Yeah, and look, I keep going down that rabbit hole, y'all. This is the crowd. Yolie, if you don't know, this crowd is like big Delphi, and a lot of my people are Delphi. And we're kind of sorry. I've got gnats. I don't know why I have gnats.
It's okay.
We have like a plague, and they're mostly in the kitchen, but some of them come in here. So if you see me slapping the air, that's what that's about. I've had them for months. Hey, Carol. It is good to see you. I hope you are doing good. I've had you on my mind lately. Hope you're okay and you're safe and everything is good. I sent you a text message, by the way, with my PO box. So I hope you got that. Um, she knows what I'm talking about. Okay, Caddy Crime Ghoul, good to see you.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, I'm gonna stop talking, and I am gonna let. I'm probably gonna ask you questions
Oh,
though,
absolutely.
because I don't even know a whole lot.
That's
So,
okay.
you're an attorney, and tell us like a little bit about your background.
Okay, so initially, I got a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I worked as a mental health worker, and I took care of all kinds of mentally ill patients, and also elderly with that had Alzheimer's. And so I was hands on. I was a mental health worker for a while, and then I got frustrated because of how they're treated,
Oh yeah.
and I decided, to maybe go into law. And so I did. I went to law school, and after I graduated, I had applied for a very famous firm. It was the firm. It was the one of the attorneys who handled the Rodney King case, the civil
Oh
rights
wow.
case. Yeah,
Yeah.
and his name is Federico Sayer. And if you look him up, he's a well-known attorney. And so I learned from him. Actually, I was quite a big mouth, and I wasn't having it. And he said, "Well, if you're not afraid of me, then go for it." Because a lot of the females are very timid, and I was not. Not far from it. And he liked that. So then I got the office right next to his office. And so I started working on big cases, just because I was sort of spunky, I guess. And so anyway, so I started working on some big cases. And one of these cases was the UCI willed body case, where the director of the willed body case, where people would donate their bodies for science, was, and I'll say allegedly because he was never convicted of a crime, and the university settled civil cases, so they never admitted guilt. So I will say that he was, I mean, allegedly selling body parts.
Wow.
They did. It's true that he was selling body parts. The question is whether it was a crime at the time that he did it. And so, I now do medical malpractice, but the first 4 years or so, basically all I did was sue public entities. So
Wow.
yeah, and so I went up against a university, and my boss, Mr. Sayer, he sort of let me, and it just took off. Because I wasn't
Wow.
afraid. I wasn't afraid. I mean,
Yeah.
I should have been afraid. Now that I look back on it, I should have been afraid, but wasn't afraid. They didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't. It didn't. I I didn't have fear. Okay,
Do
and
you think that I mean you said something about it being like kind of a female thing? Do you think it's still that way, or are women getting bolder? Do you think in the?
well, I think so. But you got to remember, like well, Mr. Sayer, he's Hispanic.
Hmm.
Federico Castellan Sayer, he's Hispanic, and so he wanted to promote Hispanic women. I mean, I think his heart was in the right place, and a lot of times it's fear. People have fear, and
Hmm.
they can't they're nervous and they have fear, and sure, I get nervous, but the fear is a different issue. Is I wasn't scared to just do it, to ask those hard questions. It was just sort of like I was kind of rough around the edges. And I think now it's different. This was back in 2000, 2002. And I think now it's different. I think now women don't have to, be a loudmouth, or they can just be themselves. Well, that was me back then, but, I mean, I was, I mean, I brought the university to their knees, literally. And
Wow.
so yeah, so it was a very powerful thing, but at the same time, I never let it get to me because believe me, when you're dealing with shady people selling body parts in the black market, uh, yeah, you got to watch your back. I felt a little, nervous. I was always, you know, but I was always cognizant of what was going on. Like I would look at my surroundings, and I graduated in 2002, and I was already taking depositions and doing things, and this came to be on the newspaper in the newspaper. Yeah, I guess it was 2005, January of 2005. So I was sworn in on December 2002 as an
Wow.
attorney.
So you were
So,
like a still pretty new at this then.
oh God, yes. Um, and that's what's so funny about this whole thing is my boss, Federico Sayer, he let me handle it. And
Wow.
and he said, I need somebody who has no fear for this case. And trust
Yeah.
me, I was, and we laugh because I still am in touch with him, and he said, I don't know what you were about, but you were something else, and so you weren't scared. So I just, so I took depositions after depositions after depositions, and it it worked out, and I basically linked the UCI World Body scandal with the UCLA World Body scandal, which, you know, and the two that were criminally prosecuted uh, was Henry Reed, who was the World Body Program director at UCLA, and yeah, and Ernest Nelson. Uh, the He literally, Mr. Nelson, and I'll just back up so that people can understand the story.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say take us from I don't even know whether to say take us from the beginning of maybe where you got involved or
Yeah, I'll start where
how,
I got involved. That's probably the best part.
okay.
So I got involved, and like I said, my boss said, "Here, these are all these clients. This is a full-time job for somebody. Nobody wants to really get into it. They're kind of like scared. I don't have time. I need you to back me up on this." And so that's where I started. So initially, this case broke in 1999, um, where there was a before I was an attorney. So in 1996, UCI, University of California Irvine, hired Christopher Brown. He was a mortician, and I guess you go to a community college and you get your certification to be a mortician, which involves embalming, funeral stuff. And so he was a mortician. So in 1996, UCI hires him, and he's the director of the Willed Body program. And that program was designed for people who want to donate their body to science. Uh,
Okay.
so the medical students can dissect bodies. And so there was a contract with that, right?
Mhm.
And so in 1997 and 1998, Mr. Brown hired a mortuary transport company to pick up bodies from their place where they were to the UCI World Body Program, and these people were people who had donated their bodies to science. So he hires this hairy mortuary transport service, and this guy is a friend of Mr. Brown's, or an acquaintance, maybe. And so even the name Harry's Mortuary Transport sounds crazy, but he hires that person to drive bodies back and forth. Um, Now, I believe what happens is they start offering services, okay? and they tell the loved ones, which they at that point they started acting as a mortuary, okay,
Okay.
not as a science, because they started telling their loved ones of the people who donated their bodies to science, we'll give you the remains
Okay.
after we're done with them.
Now, is this UCI or is this the
This
moisture?
UCI.
Okay.
So Christopher Brown he was a mortician. They hired him in 1996 to be the director of UCI's Will Body program. Okay.
Okay.
But previous to that, UCLA was having trouble with their Will Body program. They were violating all kinds of regulations because they were cremating bodies in the improper way, whatever. And so in any event, then what happens is, how this whole thing broke, uh, is okay. How this broke, one of the things that happened was one of the families received cremated remains after allegedly they were used in the for the medical students. Okay.
Okay.
So they cremated the remains, and they were in a box or whatever, and it said the lady's name. And so they were going to have this big, they were going to scatter her ashes in the ocean. So they made this big to do, and they went out there, and they're having the ceremony. And as they're scattering the ashes, there is a circular identification tag that has
Okay.
a totally different name. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they started questioning it. Okay. Then Mr. Brown was caught via an expense report because he went to Arizona to take some spines to Arizona to allegedly sell them.
Okay, let me. I'm sorry. I'm trying to like wrap my head around this. So,
Hmm.
and I don't know anything about it. So,
It's okay.
okay, I have a couple of questions about when you donate your body to science and they get done with it. Do they normally cremate, or is that just on a case by case what the family wants? That's my first question.
The first thing is, if somebody signs a contract to donate their body, it is donated. Okay.
Okay.
And that means, yes, they're usually cremated. Okay. So this idea of returning the remains to the family was an idea that I believe Christopher Brown and the people working with him decided to do.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, and so at that point, they started acting as a mortuary. Okay. Because when you donate your body, somebody signs a contract to donate your body to science, it's under the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act.
Mm-hmm.
And that means you gift your body, you donate your body so that students can learn from it. And then once they're done with it, it's cremated, right?
Okay.
Or it's disposed of. I don't know what they do now, but in any event. But these people, Christopher Brown, was trying to make a business out of it. In other words, we'll give the remains back. Um, and once he was caught taking spines to Arizona, it crossed state lines,
Mm-hmm.
and he submitted an expense report, and the higher ups uh, learned about it. And when they went in to the Will Body program, it was in disarray. I
So
mean,
those spines, I know I sound like an idiot.
no, no,
Okay, those spines were supposed to be either buried, cremated, whatever they do, not transported to another place. Is that where
correct,
the okay?
correct. Now, those spines could have been dissected and used for medical students, right? I mean,
Mhm.
there at UCI, I mean, instead of the body, they could take the spine out and
Right.
show the spine. But what this guy was doing is he was taking the spine out, refrigerating them, and literally selling them to the highest bidder or whoever would
Wow.
pay. And there was actually invoices. It was hilarious. It's in a deposition. There's actual invoices up for spines, and I'm like, well, did you pay tax?
Jeez.
You can't sell body parts, and
Right.
so it said there was a tax attached to it. I said, so who did you pay? The Board of Equalization? Like, where did you pay your tax? I mean, they actually taxed these body parts, which is completely wrong. And so I took lots of depositions in this case, and one of them was Christopher Brown. And it seemed like there was no oversight with what they were doing. You know, uh,
Yeah.
so there was a group of people who never had a contract to get the remains back, and then there was a group of people who had contracts to get the remains back. Okay, so the case was separated into two because when you're talking about dead bodies, there's a special relationship there. And even
Yeah.
though those who donated their bodies, but the families didn't request anything back, they were upset because they wondered what happened to their loved one, right?
Yeah.
So so they were in a class of themselves, and that was a class action which settled. And I was involved in that settlement, and it talks about that on the left side of the article. And so those people, it was a class action because they had no idea what happened to. They were just left with their imagination. We donated, so and so donated his body to science around this time. This is what was going on. Oh my God, what could have happened? That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And as a university, as a public university, it's a big deal. I mean,
Sure.
uh, yeah. So that those settled. It was qualified as a class because the damages were merely just horror. To think about what happened, like
Yeah.
emotional distress. Like what could have happened to my mom's body. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, because even if you're donating, or your family is donating to science, which I mean, whatever. I mean, I know they need them. I know it's helpful,
mhm.
but you expect that body is going to be treated with respect, and disposed of, in a good manner. I don't know how you say it, if it's
In a
cremation,
respectful
whatever.
manner.
Yes, not like, oh, okay, that's somebody's actually, giving this to a third party and saying, hey, you can sell these parts. I mean, that's insane.
The crazier thing is who's buying them.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, are my question was, who the hell were they transporting spines to? And
exactly.
who's going to be using these spines? I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
are these legit medical researchers? I mean, seriously.
yeah,
Um, it's frightening to think. And perhaps some were legit, some were not, but the whole transaction was not. It wasn't legal. I mean, under the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act, because the only thing you can charge for if you are transporting body parts is just for the cost of the transportation, and that's about it. You really can't.
right.
You really can't. You don't sell body parts. That's a no. So when I saw your show, um, about the prisoners and how one
Yeah,
was missing his heart,
yes,
okay, and another one, I don't know if it was a prisoner or not, but the body was stuffed with newspaper.
yes. Yeah, and I was reading up on that case a few days ago.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, those kinds of things. I mean, I was like in the middle of this whole fiasco, and once I was able, well, you know, once I wasn't even an attorney when the whole story broke in 1999. I wasn't
Wow.
an attorney.
Wow.
And so in 2000, these cases were going on, they were in complex litigation. So not only was I tasked with this huge case, but it was in complex litigation, which is a special court where rules, you don't go by this code of civil procedure. It's like you go by a case order the judge assigns, you know. And so I was like, what the hell? You
Mhm.
know,
Exactly.
he just threw me in there. He just threw me into this case. I
Wow.
I have no idea, but it was wild. Um, so it turns out, that what they were doing is they were making money on the side, okay?
Mhm.
And the sad thing is they actually set up a donation, a monetary donation process where people could donate money to cancer victims, because one of the deceased, he's mentioned in the article, Joseph Milliken. His father was very, very healthy, active. He ended up getting colon cancer, was dead um, within 6 months. And so he decided, he meaning the guy's father, decided he wanted to donate his body to science. And so he uh, believed that his father's spine was one of the ones that was taken because it was around that time. And we when the investigators went in to the
Mhm.
Will Body program, they couldn't even identify anybody. It was just a disarray.
Right.
It was complete disarray. I mean, and so when I came into this case, it was in the middle of this discovery, meaning a lot of depositions had to be taken, not only of the plaintiffs, so I defended a lot of depositions, but of the main players. And I have no idea why this Federico Sayer let me handle it. I was taking the depositions of the main players. I
Wow.
have no idea. I mean, I had no fucking clue what I was doing. Well, no, I did. I did. I studied and I made sure that I was, ready.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you get into a bind and, you start breaking out the cleavage. I mean, I was like, okay, okay. Uh, so, I mean, seriously, it was
Well,
quite the.
I'm sure in law school they didn't, prepare you. I mean, I know you learn a lot of things, but who is ever prepared to talk about, body parts, organ trafficking or people still like where do you even start? I can imagine.
Well, yeah. So it was quite the thing, because it involved a gray area, and at that time it was a gray area,
Mhm.
and it involved the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act, and as a result of this case, there were changes made to the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. And I believe the two people involved, oh, well, just to back up. So I got involved in this case and I started taking the depositions, and I realized, this Harry's transport up to this point, where I came in 2002, and onward when I started working on this case, nobody in the case, because there were other plaintiffs' attorneys who had other families, but I had the majority of them. And so at some point, like in 2004, I was like, wait a minute, why hasn't anybody taken the deposition of the mortuary driver? You know, and
Wow.
so nobody had taken the deposition of the Harry's mortuary transport guy.
That's mind blowing to me. I don't. Yeah, I'm at a
So
loss.
so I said, hey, we're gonna subpoena him. Whew, he's this big, huge Samoan guy who comes in, intimidating as hell. And
Wow.
I'm just this, and I had an inkling that he somehow was. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. One second.
That's fine.
I gotta go. You feed girl
That's
and Lily's down
fine.
there, I guess.
me look at.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Um, I'm dog sitting with another dog. So, um, anyway, so, and I don't even know how to mute this thing, but anyway.
I don't. I think I can do it from my
Oh,
end
wait.
too, but I don't know how.
That's okay. All right. So at that point when I came into the case, nobody had taken the deposition of the driver. So I subpoenaed him, and I had an inkling that, because this, I don't remember where it was, but this driver had said something, and I thought, why aren't people deposing him? And I had a picture of Ernest Nelson, who was this guy at UCLA who was alleged, well, not, I shouldn't say allegedly, because he was convicted. He, well, no, he did a plea bargain. Let me see. What did he do? No, he was actually convicted. Ernest Nelson was actually convicted of grand theft for taking body parts, embezzlement, and tax fraud, I believe. He was convicted. So he was actually like sawing off body parts at UCLA, and he claimed that doctors were ready, they were aware of him, and he was doing that. And so when I deposed the driver, Harry's Mortuary Transport, the driver and the owner of the company, I showed him a picture of Ernest Nelson. And I said, do you know this person? He said, yes. I said, have you ever seen him? He said, yes. How? Tell me how you met him. And he goes into this story, which was blew me away, that he would get body parts from Christopher Brown, who was the UCI Willed Body Director at the University of California, Irvine. He would get body parts in a black plastic bag, limbs, whatever, all kinds, not organs, but
A
body
black
parts.
plastic bag.
Hmm.
Oh my god.
And we're not talking about organs, we're talking about limbs. Just because I think I tried to distinguish, they weren't organs necessarily, but bones, bags, limbs, all kinds of body parts, just body
Oh my
parts from,
god.
heads, whatever.
Oh
And
my
he
god.
would take them he would drive them, this transport driver would drive them to UCLA, and he would meet Ernest Nelson, who he identified in the picture, on the third floor elevator of some building, and he would give him the bags of body parts, and then Ernest Nelson would give him cash, and
Wow.
he would go back and take it to Christopher Brown. So I was like, what? And actually, defense counsel, they didn't know what to do. And I kept going on with my questioning and everything, and then finally when I finished questioning, it was their turn, and they said, no, we got to stop this depot. They're like, no. I'm like, you, what's the matter, you don't want to ask questions? Like,
Oh,
I mean,
exactly. I'd
I
have a
was just kind of,
million.
yeah, you need to, and so they stopped the deposition, and they shouldn't really do that, but I didn't know any better. I could have said, no, this is your chance, because little did I
Mm-hmm.
know they were going to resubpoena the guy, and then the guy was going to be pissed off, and he was thinking that I was doing it, and he's this big, huge Samoan guy, and I'm like, oh my god! They resubpoenaed him
Yeah.
at the time that they got their ducks in order to ask him questions. They were totally blown away, and so here I am, this less than 2 year 3 year attorney, and they were just so blown away, and they were like, "Who are you?" They were like, "Who the
Wow.
fuck are you?" And I was like, I was just like, I think they thought I was somebody out, like somebody undercover. I don't know what they thought, but whatever they thought. And of course my boss was having a field day with this, but I was starting to get scared. I was starting to think like, shit. So the UCI attorneys, they actually they resubpoenaed this driver, Harry's transport driver, and he came back in, and he was furious that he had to go through this again,
Mm-hmm.
because they had their chance to ask him questions at the time we were there, and they
Right.
didn't. And I explained that to him. I said, this is not me. yeah, I didn't subpoena you. I asked all the questions I need to ask of you. And so then they started trying to rehabilitate him, and it just didn't go anywhere. It was bad. Um, and so, you think these things with universities, a lot of people think, like, how could this happen? It did. I mean, this was true. This was something out of the movies, like, but it was true. And I never wanted to talk about this case ever again. I was like, God, you know, I mean,
Yet
but
here you are.
here I am, yeah. So I mean, I feel better now talking about it, because there was just an issue with a funeral home that had all these dead bodies. I think it was it was in Colorado, I believe. Um, in any event, so yeah, so I think when it comes, and I'll always bring up the Idaho 4 case, when it comes to universities,
Yeah,
this is why I'm so into that case. Um, into the Idaho 4 case. That's a big
right,
part of it. Not to mention the victims. I mean, they're beautiful people.
right.
I mean, they were young, and they didn't. I mean, whatever they could have done, they didn't deserve this.
No,
And
no.
so yeah. So I did sue a lot of public entities, and so when people think that it could never happen, okay, it happened. It was in the newspaper. It was like I linked the two scandals with UCLA, and it just seemed like the higher ups, or at least in the university, they just turned a blind eye. And actually, I had deposed the actual medical director, or the vice president, or somebody, I don't remember, who was in charge of the medical school. And he was so condescending to me. And he said, "What is your name again?" And I told him my name. And I said, "Remember that name." I told him that. It just came out. I said, "Remember that name." And guess what? Guess what? When all this stuff came out, he kept his job. Okay. After all this, they blamed it on Christopher Brown. They said he didn't know he wasn't educated enough. They messed up. It was negligence, whatever they
Hmm.
said, but they never admitted guilt. It's settled. So they never admitted guilt. But whatever it was, you could see in the article, they tried to blame it on Christopher Brown. He was a rogue employee, and we didn't know anything. And so, but what happened later is UCI was in the news again. And this
Really?
time they were doing liver transplants, and to the highest bidder. Okay.
What?
Yeah, they
Oh
were,
my God.
yeah, they were, and I don't know the details of that, but I know that a reporter called me and asked me what I thought, and I thought, oh my God. And at that point, it was the dean of the medical school, Dean Cesario. At that point, he got canned. At that point, and I felt like going back to him and saying, "Remember my name?
Yeah.
You remember my name?" Okay, these people were just unbelievable. And you wanted to, I thought I'd give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe it was a rogue employee. They weren't, but no,
Mhm.
they were doing it again. And
Oh my
previous
God.
previous to the Will Body case, they had the fertility scandal
Now, what
where
was that? I didn't hear about. And here's the thing that I find very interesting, because I have, even though I've been a nurse forever, I should have I should have picked a different career. Really, I've always been fascinated with true
I
crime,
should
and
have picked a different
I mean,
career.
I should have went into law, or in to law enforcement or legal or something, uh, but I didn't. But the thing of it is I have studied true crime cases
Me too.
forever. Even I started as a little girl,
Me
you know,
too.
and just being fascinated. Sorry, there's been that, but being fascinated with this stuff. So anytime the news would have any kind of information, a scandal like this, I would have been all on top of it, reading it. Back in the day, even before the internet, I was everywhere trying to find stuff, and I have never heard of this case, which I find extremely odd.
Hmm. Well, I think a big part of it is, well, there could have been some attorneys who could have become famous because of this case. And I I for one did I was just doing my job. And I think when my boss Federico Sayer assigned me this case, I was just doing my job. I was getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah,
I was trying to be a very diligent attorney, doing what I was supposed to do, and you know, due diligence and just diligently pursuing the case. And this is what happened. And this
yeah,
was, and so I didn't want any kind of like notoriety or anything. I just want to do my damn job. I
right.
still just want to do my damn job. So, I'm not social very much. I don't like to be in the limelight. And I swear, I got into this YouTube community because I called into CJ's show. And then I got into it because, I was like, it was a university case. It was on the Idaho 4 case. And I said, damn it, I've got to say something. And I just happened that I was listening to a show and I called in. And but I back then I and still I like to talk about stuff about I like to talk about opinions and things, what people think
Hmm.
about things in the true crime. So this is good for me. But nah, I wasn't into being famous. I mean, gosh, I was barely 3 years. Like, how are you going to take me seriously? And they had to. They had
Yeah,
to take me seriously.
yeah.
And it was hilarious because I was this little girl type of thing. And, you know, um, they were like, why the hell would Fred assign this girl to this case?
I
And
mean,
maybe he
but
knew something I didn't.
yeah, but the thing of it is Yoli, I'm trying to make you bigger on here so I can, oh my goodness, so I can see what I'm doing. I don't know what it's looking like to y'all. I just realized that we could see you better. All right, there we go. Um, it's amazing, and I think it's awesome that you were, you know, look, I know equal rights and all that stuff, but the truth of the matter is that women still have some oppression. Okay, it's you can't say it out loud, and I think it's amazing and wonderful that so early in your career you were given these opportunities, and to work with these amazing cases. Um, Let me go back to what you were saying about the university. So they were getting the bodies, using the bodies, and then selling the body parts. Now, were these, I guess, hypothetically, did they say that these body parts were going for further research to labs, or what did they say?
No, it was a contractual thing, right?
Uh huh.
So those who contracted to donate their body, there was one contract, right?
Right.
And that was the decedent. Like, let's say I have cancer, I'm going to die.
Mm
I
hmm.
sign a contract, I want to donate my body. So
Right.
that means that my family has no rights to my body, and I'm making a decision ahead of time to donate my body. Okay.
Mm hmm.
What these people at the UCI Will Body Program were doing is they were saying, oh, they were trying to make it a business where for a fee, once we're done, we'll cremate the remains and give them back to you. So that operates like a mortuary, not a scientific.
Okay. So when I mean I know they denied knowledge of, oh, we didn't know, this is a rogue employee, whatever. But what was like the recipients, the second time recipients of the bags of body parts, like what did they ever acknowledge or say what they were doing with those body parts?
No, I never found out. As in terms of the body parts that were in the bags that were given to the doctor. Well, everybody
Yeah.
thought this African American guy Ernest Nelson was a doctor.
Oh.
Um, at least Harry, the guy that was transporting the body parts, and he was probably the most innocent of them all. Actually, he was probably like, you know. So he was delivering these body parts, and he thought that Ernest Nelson was a doctor. And his description was that, I would give this bag of body parts to this doctor, this African American doctor who had a chain, like he said, he had a chain around. I don't want to, he did. He said that. And then when I showed him the picture, he said, "Yeah, that's him." It was
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
it was Ernest Nelson who back in the day at UCLA was in trouble. And actually, after this case that I did, they ended up getting criminally prosecuted. And Henry Reed pled to he pled out, and the other guy, Ernest Nelson, the African American guy, I think he went to trial and he was convicted of embezzlement and grand theft. And I mean, I don't know how you grand theft. I mean, it's like grand theft of a
Yeah.
body. So I don't know what they were doing, and that's what the frightening part of it is when you were talking about your show, when I was listening to your show, and you said that one of the prisoners had their heart taken out. I'm like, what could they possibly do with a heart that's not
Well,
surgically put in? Like,
yeah.
what could they possibly do with that?
Okay, now here is what, and I'm learning so much. And again, y'all people who love to research, like there's so many different rabbit holes, and you have to really get. I listen to, and I'm trying to get in contact with one of the family members or the girlfriend of Brian Dotson, is the guy from Alabama. Just in November, just last month. If you missed the last show, I talked about, it's a long story, but basically they returned a prisoner, that a guy that passed away in prison under very nefarious circumstances. And there was a lot to that. But when the family got the body back and wanted to do an autopsy, the doctor couldn't do a complete autopsy. Yeah, let's get this out. Autopsy, because the heart was missing. Now the family never gave permission. In fact, they told the warden, "Do not touch the body. Don't let anybody touch the body. We're going to do an autopsy." But so there you go. Now, since then, I've learned that there are body parts that come up missing from various prisoners in many different states.
That's crazy.
And now here is what, okay, this part, because you're talking about prisoners, you don't know what kind of health they're in, what
But a
substance, like,
heart, you
yeah,
have to have heart.
yeah. I mean, but if you're gonna, because at first I'm thinking black market transplants, right? And I'm not saying that's not possible, because in this case, this guy stayed at the prison for 5 days, 5 days. And I don't know what you do with a body for 5 days, but he was decomposing badly when the family got him back. And
Was he an organ donor? Maybe
no,
that, no?
no, the family said no. As a matter of fact, the family, like I said, they said don't touch him, because they were not sure what caused his death at the prison. They were thinking, they wanted to know. The prison said overdose, which I think is technically what it was. However, I'm learning so much about prisons right now. And I'm a nurse in a county jail.
Hmm.
So we do things, even though we house prisoners for the Department of Corrections, we they're all our rules.
Hmm.
They're not treated any different. If when you come to the county, you live by our rules. Actually, it's much safer for them to be with us for the time that they can be. But yeah, so I don't know a lot. One of the nurses that works with me, she's been a contract nurse for prisons all over the place, all over the United States and in Alabama. So, I was asking her questions of, about custody, who owns that body once they pass away. Now, a lot of them do pass away in from overdose. I would say, yes, are there altercations where people, you know, unalive somebody? Absolutely. I mean, it's prison. It's rough. Um, but that's what the family had originally asked, they thought maybe it was an altercation, and so they wanted an autopsy because their conversation with the warden was a little bit sketchy. And so they're like, yeah, we want to do an autopsy ourselves. And then then it took 5 days, and then the heart's missing. So what I am,
Wild.
yeah, I mean, it's like a nightmare. Can you imagine this family? And so what I'm learning though is, even if it's not somebody that they would, and we assume, okay, we assume that it was not for a transplant, that it wasn't sold on the black market, but we don't know. But another thing is, if there is a very good market for selling organs for to research labs, is what I'm finding out. Of course, to universities, because these bodies aren't donated. Like, he did not donate his body. So I'm thinking that, I don't know what the contract is. I don't know, but medical schools have to get body parts from somewhere. Um, and that was a big thing in China for a long time. They were just, you know, people were just passing away left and right, and they were selling their organs for transplant, actually. So, I mean, so there you go. And I think it's very likely a black market, but it's still illegal. You cannot take body parts, whether somebody, if they haven't donated them, you can't just sell them to a
No.
lab. And then it begs the question, well, are people
See,
passing away because you need the body parts? You need some dollars? Like what?
well, and you see the issue with selling body part. I mean, it's illegal under the uniform. It's illegal.
Right.
So
Because people,
now
did you hear about that? People were trying to sell them on eBay, like back in the day, like years ago when eBay started. They're like, okay, I'll sell my kidney.
okay. So yeah. So the thing is, when if it was for transplant purposes, let's say, okay,
Hmm.
I mean, there's tests that need to be run. I mean, to make sure that you're not transplanting a defective
Right.
heart. So, I mean, I mean, this is also bizarre, and it's such a case where that it's not it wasn't heavily regulated. I think
Yeah.
now in California they are getting more regulated. And one of the outcomes that happened because of this case that I handled, the cases, is barcodes. Whenever body parts were taken out, okay, so barcodes were placed on the cadavers, and so whenever a body part was is taken out of that cadaver, they put a barcode on it that it belongs to that cadaver. So they started using barcodes. And I wanted to send you all these articles on the barcodes and
Yeah.
on the liver transplant, where they actually where a reporter contacted me, was asking me what do I think, and I'm like, oh my god. I said, I wonder what else is brewing there. I mean,
Yeah.
because you've never heard of it, and a big and universities, public universities, they don't have confidentiality agreements. Okay, maybe for their employees they do, but for the university, they're public. They don't have confidentiality agreements. But you know what?
Wow.
I I didn't want any kind of notoriety for that case. This was way back in 2004. I was working on 2003, 2004. And just now I feel comfortable, talking about it, especially after everything is done and over with. But there's a lot of attorneys who capitalize on it, and they get lucky with the case, and then they keep going, and they really don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I really didn't want to. I don't like all that. I just want to do my job. That's
Yeah.
all I was doing.
Well, I mean, but then it gets, it kind of gets crazy because you think, if you're not safe, all right, we've seen so many. If you're watching true crime, you see so many people who you even wonder, are they guilty? And I think, I mean, and this is an old statistic because I haven't looked it up recently, but I know it used to be, they used to say like 25% percent of people who were convicted and in prison and or had the death penalty were innocent. They know that there's a wrongful conviction. So now you're talking about any one of us, any one of our families, can get into a situation where, now you got this touch DNA, and that is scary as crap to me.
Well,
Uh,
I submitted my DNA to 23andMe, and there was a big breach. I got an email.
oh my
Yeah, there
God.
was a huge breach. And I got an email telling me, and it's like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And it was so funny because they, when CJ had a show when they were talking about this IgG genetic stuff,
Yeah. I
and
watched that.
yeah,
Yeah.
in that very one of those shows during that time period, I got something back from 23andMe that said we've something about, do you want to connect with your father and a brother? Okay, because I never knew who my father was, and I don't have a brother. I'm an only child, so it was a link, and it was like, oh shit. And this was right around the time that this was all going on, and I thought, oh shit,
Wow.
do I do this or do I not? Do I want to know or do I not want to know? And
Yeah.
I haven't clicked it. And then I get the email that, you know, they were breached. They hacked into the program, and I mean, who knows what. But when you send your DNA to those places, you could say your name is somebody else's name, and
Right.
what you get back is the DNA makeup.
And then it's in that database.
It's in the database, and that database can be accessed illegally, according to one of the witnesses in the Idaho 4 case. And apparently, that database was accessed illegally by hackers. So, and I have the
Yeah.
email. I mean, it's like, holy cow. Like, it was like unbelievable. This was all going on during the time that the Idaho 4 IgG case was going on. So I'm thinking to myself, I think I need to say something. Like, I don't know. It's just too ironic, that this is more than a coincidence. I need to say something.
Yeah. And I mean, because we talked about that on CJ's show, and I know he's talked about it a lot. Let me say something then to Carol. Um, what your comment, very interesting. If you ever want to talk about stuff like that, Carol, I would love to have you back on, and that would be super awesome. So you just let me know. But yeah, because we were talking about hypothetically, I can spit in a cup. Like, they don't verify that you are who you say you
Mm-mm.
are. You
No,
know, I could be putting silky spit into a tube, and then putting my name on there as Nancy Pelosi. Then I go commit a crime. I would never do that. Not her name. but,
oh my god.
but let's say that, I put that name down, and then I go commit a crime. Guess whose name is in the database? Hers. So likewise, if somebody wanted to
There's a
frame me,
there's a
you know,
flaw in it. There's a
yeah.
flaw in it. And there's differences between getting your genetic DNA and then ancestry, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's a step further where you go into your ancestry, but I did the DNA thing because I wanted to know more about, because I don't know who my father is, and so I wanted to know more about what who could he be, like, and they also, one of the good things about 23andMe is if they send me stuff, updates on genetic diseases that I don't have them, like I don't
Yeah.
have the gene for breast cancer, I don't have the gene for or whatever gene for Parkinson's. So they send me stuff that is like health wise, which is good.
Yeah.
But then they said, do you want to participate in research? And they started asking me questions like, did you play an instrument before 6 years old? Did you, like, crazy, crazy questions, just like out of the blue, just one question, like, what?
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah. So, and I learned from this Elizabeth Vargas that was on this Brian Koberger case, or she testified in regards to emotion as an expert about how these databases can be accessed illegally. And so, what I learned is you have to go into your settings in your account and opt out of using your DNA for criminal purposes, for matching criminals,
Yeah.
um, and I had to do that. I would not have known that otherwise.
No. And I mean, I think anytime somebody wants to know that much about you and they're like, "Oh, we're going to give you all this free information and testing." Yes, it's helpful. You don't have to pay for that to, but you have to look and see what is the motive, because that's me. I'm always looking at people. What's your motive? What's your motive? Doesn't
Right.
matter if you're a criminal or not. But it's like, why do you want to know? And I don't know. It's scary because I've always told my kids, follow the money. Yeah, if you want to know the truth, follow the money. You'll find out.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes, follow the money. It's exactly what you do. And for the universe, for reasons I can't, like, I don't know the reasons why this will body program case that I handled was not, like, a lot of people don't know about it, but I do know that it was a national case. But I think it was in academia that they focused on, like, other universities know about it and things like that. I don't know that it got to the whole, public for real, like, I don't know that it was talked about, but this was a real thing. And for me, after that case, I know that anything can happen. I know,
yeah,
I
I
know that
guess.
anything can happen. Okay. And when it comes to universities, I know, and granted, I didn't, I wasn't afraid or anything. I should have been, but I wasn't. And it's a good thing I wasn't, because I just took it on. And, it wasn't until this big Simone guy came in that was like so pissed off because his deposition was again, he was again subpoenaed for his deposition. And he's looking at me, that I thought, oh shit, and
Yeah,
I had to explain it. It's not me. I showed him the subpoena. It's not me. And then he started focusing his aggression to the defense counsel for UCI, and I was like, okay, good. But I was a little nervous there.
yeah, I
And
can imagine.
if I'd known better, I would have forced them to ask questions there right then and there, and I would have told the witness, you're subpoenaed here, so this is their chance. If I'd known better, but I didn't. I was just like, don't you guys want to ask any questions? Like, and they're like, well, we have to make a phone call. And they were all freaked out. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, he's here. Like, I was just like, so, you know,
Oh, they were probably dying inside,
oh,
you
they
know,
were. And to
because
this day, the defense attorney, Lou Marlin, every time he sees me, he gives me a hug. Yeah, they were good attorneys. I have to say that the defense counsel for the UCI Will Body case, they were good attorneys, and so that's how you kind of separate the attorneys from the case. And like, sometimes attorneys are tasked with representing a heinous individual,
Mhm.
but it shouldn't be translated into the attorney's a heinous individual. I mean,
Right,
I mean,
right,
everybody, the reason there are criminal defense attorneys is so that people's rights don't get trampled on, and it's a checks and balances on the cops. But this was a
exactly.
civil case, this was a
Yeah,
civil case, and it was bordering on criminal, but I had the civil case. So it was all about the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act and what that act allowed universities to do. And once they stepped over that and started acting as a mortuary, well, then the duty of care applied,
yeah.
to the loved ones, uh, in terms of that special relationship.
Um, so in the end, I mean, tell us how did was the university? And I think we haven't heard about this because I think that they, just my opinion, but I think the university had enough dollars to put not completely squelch, but yeah, keep this case on the down low. Uh,
Well,
I certainly,
I would receive a lot of calls about it, and I said, no comment. Okay, I mean, the only reason why I talked about it to the newspaper when they called me was because I had taken the deposition, and my boss told me, you're representing, plaintiffs, individuals against a public entity. So if it's your case and you did something on it, you should talk about it.
right.
You shouldn't say no comment. But later, and I talked about it, but later I would get calls and I would just say, I would just refer them to the case files. You know, I didn't want to say anything bad about anybody, and especially the attorneys who were on the other side, because believe me, I learned a lot from them. You know,
Yeah.
and I remember, defending these clients, and they're getting to an area where they shouldn't be getting to, and I know it, but I don't know how to object or whatever. And I just remember leaning in and wearing that, little cleavage and
Yeah.
kind of, and he would say, "Oh, so when you went to the hotel, I mean hospital."
Women are powerful.
Well,
We all know
I
that.
had no idea what to do. I was like, and it worked. It worked. So I'm like, hey, I'm using everything I can, even though I don't. I mean, now I would know what to do, but
Yeah.
it was one of those things where it was just like, you know what, I'm gonna do what I have to do. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, you know, but yeah. So I believe that a lot of nefarious things can happen. I'm not, and harsh reality. Uh, that the individual harsh, he talks
Mhm.
about, you don't think these things can happen, and you see
Right.
the police, you see authorities as, figures that you should look up to, and you don't think that they would do something like that. You don't think, you know they would do something like that, and unless you've experienced it, you will believe that those people are just people. They will do whatever
Mhm.
an individual who doesn't have the education, who doesn't have, now I'm in medical malpractice. So now, I mean, I sue doctors and nurses and hospitals.
Yeah.
And one of the good things about those cases is that they're normally confidential. So
Right.
I can't speak on them, and it's perfect. I don't need to be,
Yeah.
peop- you know, but even doctors, like, there's all these documentaries on these doctors who commit, research fraud, and you know
Oh yeah.
and
Absolutely.
it happens. I mean, prior
Yeah.
to the Will body case, the fertility there was a fertility scandal where one of the doctors at UCI was implanting embryos of other people in other people's bodies, and I mean, that was a whole scandal.
Well, let me just ask you about that. Was that like for like people who wanted embryos, or was this unwanted? Like,
Well, there were people who froze their embryos, I think. Like, I guess that's when
oh
the
yeah,
sperm and the ova are connected, and they
right,
froze them.
okay,
And they were supposed to be implanted maybe in a surrogate or something like that,
yeah,
so that it has both DNA of the parents,
right.
and they find a compatible person. Well, they were just being implanted in other people, and he was saying, "Oh my God, you're pregnant," And in vitro fertilization, there was some monkey business going on with that. But some people um, have a kid that isn't theirs, and like, it was a big mess. They didn't keep track of the embryos, and I wasn't involved in that case, but that was before. I mean, I remember hearing about it when I was like in high school and early
Wow,
college days, where this fertility scandal was all over the place.
my
Doctors
gosh,
fled to Mexico and started doing stuff over there in Mexico, and it was crazy. I mean, I don't know, I didn't know too
wow.
much about it, but then I got involved with the Will body case, and it is strange that it hasn't reached a lot of people. I mean, because it was, you know,
I have to think, Yoli, if these things have been brought out to into the open, just think about what could be going on in some of these universities that haven't
mhm.
been prosecuted, haven't
well,
come out.
well, that's that's what I'm saying. Um, when I'll send you that article. The reporter contacted me and asked me, now look at this liver thing, because they were accused of, transplanting livers to the highest person who paid the most.
Right.
And they said, well, what do you think about that? In this dean of this medical school, the one that I said, just remember my name, because I was like, like, he's, what is your name? And I said, and so he got canned. He got ousted, his pension ousted. Um, and he was a pretty highfalutin person there. And,
Yeah.
uh, you think, uh, it, I mean, that was on the down low too. You didn't hear much about that.
No.
You didn't hear much about that. And these are public universities, so you wonder what else is going on. So
Exactly.
my comment to the reporter was, I wonder what else is brewing that we don't know about, because you see that these universities are very powerful, and they're so powerful that it kind of brings back stuff like when I see this Idaho 4 case, how you know how powerful they can be. you know
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
the property was donated to the university. This private property was donated to the university, and now they're going to tear it down.
Right. And I mean I appreciate CJ for really hammering on that, because yeah, from the very beginning it's like, yeah, follow the money. Yeah, that was going to affect the University of Idaho in a huge way, negative way, that they couldn't afford. I have had this comment highlighted because I had some questions about this. Samantha said, "Did y'all hear about the Supreme Court ruled that information collected from a phone by a smart car is valid to use for prosecution?" So, Yoli, I guess my question is, and I don't think, yeah, I've never heard of like any big high profile cases at this time, but okay, now we've got the IgG, and we've got touch DNA, and we've got all this stuff that could potentially make you look guilty. And then we've now enter AI, okay? And we already know that you can fake text messages from somebody and all that kind of stuff. And uh, so, from a legal standpoint, how do you defend yourself? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so like, I'm not a criminal defense attorney, but I mean, I do know a lot about evidence and what comes in and what doesn't. So
Right.
so what I see is the challenge to these like electronic evidence. Like the attorneys have to challenge that with experts. They have to have experts in AI to be able to say, this is the artificial intelligence, this is not, this was made by artificial intelligence. Because attorneys, I mean, they're attorneys, they know, they get the evidence in order to refute, they get the experts, and they so it's going to be an issue of experts, and that costs a lot of money, okay, to be able to refute things like IgG DNA, like to attack it, and like I can see the IgG DNA attacking it, because there's so many steps you have to do, um,
Right.
in order to get to a profile. And you the quality of the specimen and how much of the specimen was available, because at first they put it in CODIS.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all things that the attorney's going to have an expert talk about and say, there's no way they could have put DNA in CODIS and also used DNA to test it and snip parts of it to create a profile.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
and the quality of the DNA, what, like, is it degraded? Is it like, I know that in the Idaho 4 it's a single source DNA, which says like, okay, so single source, that means, what does that mean? Like, it was from a single source. So, but it's touch DNA. So
Right.
experts have to defend you on that. And that's the thing is public defenders, I don't know how I'm sure they can get experts, but you know, it's about the experts. That's it. About challenging the evidence that they present against you, um, and doing it competently so that the jury can see that there's doubt. because all
Right.
the defense has to do is create a reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because if there's a reasonable doubt, they can't convict you. And so all you need is experts, and it's something that experts are going to have to do. And
Yeah. I mean, because look at, I know you're following with me on CJ's revisiting the OJ Simpson case, and back then DNA was a it was a big deal. It was a big part of the case, but the understanding of a jury to what DNA, the way it was presented, I think if it were presented today in 2023, 2024, I think that DNA evidence would have probably gotten him guilty, a guilty verdict. But
yeah,
people don't understand, and so I think when you're looking at stuff like IgG, like I am, and a lot of people, a lot of us nosy people, we go and we start researching, what does this mean? What are the odds? Blah blah blah. But still, it's new, and it could go badly, it could go good. But then innocent people can go free if you have. I guess it's the best argument, the best expert witnesses. You
you
know.
see. And so what I learned from this Idaho 4 case is this is IgG investigative stuff. It's a tool. It's like a polygraph.
Mhm.
So polygraphs are not admissible in court. And so the IgG that prosecution is claiming is not admissible in court, so you don't get to have it. That's the whole fight. But no, the judge said it was part of the investigation. Even though it may not be admissible in a court of law as evidence, that doesn't mean that it's not discoverable. That doesn't mean that the defense can't discover that information. Okay.
Right.
Because that is what led them to their suspect. Um, that
Right.
is what led them to their suspect. So it's a tool. It's an investigative tool, and defense attorneys are able to question the investigation of whoever investigated them. And this was a multi-level investigation. Well, guess what? They can't just put their hands up and say we don't have it because the FBI has it. We don't have it. We've given everything we have. That doesn't mean that the information that's being requested doesn't exist. It just
Right.
prosecutors saying we don't have it. But whether it exists, so Ann Taylor was pressing the prosecution to pressing them, and the judge said yes, of course. I mean, if other agencies stepped in to investigate, then the defendant should be able to get those investigative materials. I mean, it's his right
Right.
to confront his accusers, to confront the people that investigated him. And so, yes. So, yeah, after they got the court order, then the prosecution went and got the whatever DNA stuff and they
Mhm.
turned it over under seal. We don't know what it is. But but yeah, it's going to depend on experts and an attorney to challenge every bit of piece. Where did the DNA go from here? And was it on a slide? How did you process it? What kind of what did you use? What solution did you use to fixate it on the slide? What all those things. It's minutia, and especially
Right.
the details with regard to chain of custody.
Mm.
And whether it could be that one of the persons involved in the chain of custody has a history of misconduct. you know and so
Yeah.
then the defense has to narrow it down there. And I mean, it's very minutia. It's just creating doubt. And
Hmm.
if there is no reasonable doubt, then you know you
Right.
can.
And it does come down to argument and all these, and not only just how well someone argues, but how well the jury understands. And I know I cover the Delphi case, and there's some stuff there that, well, there's one big part of the evidence that we there's not even a chain of custody, much less the sketchy people. And so you're in a situation where I don't want to see a guilty man go free, but when I look at it, I'm like, I can't say he's guilty. But how is that going to be in a court of law? Same as Idaho. Sometimes I've seen cases where I'm looking, and I'm sure you have too, Yoli, that you're looking at it, you're listening to the prosecution, and you see the evidence, and you're like, absolutely guilty, absolutely. And then the jury has such a poor understanding that, someone goes free, and then you can't. Then there's double jeopardy. So there's that. You know.
Yeah. I mean, um, it's scary to think that something could happen to you, and it's all because of science, faulty science. Somebody hacked into something and somehow got my DNA, put my DNA somewhere, and all of a sudden,
Right.
who knows? I mean, I mean, but it is getting trickier and trickier to defend yourself if you're
Yeah.
innocent and you're charged with crimes.
Right. And then you get into all this other stuff. And then if you are convicted and end up in prison, you might be, offed for your body parts. Or, I mean,
Oh my god. I mean,
it's
yeah. It's like, people will go out of their way to create trouble. It's like
exactly.
can you just leave good enough alone? Like for the universities, like the UCI will body case, like they donated the body to science. Okay, just leave it alone. Why do you have to go a step beyond and tell these family members, oh, we're gonna get you the ashes back, and and go beyond that and creating a duty of care.
Hmm.
There was no duty. If the individual donated the body to science, that's fine. Okay. But you created this duty, and then you started selling body parts, and then people were horrified, and it's like, can you just do your job? That's what I always tell people, just do your job to the best of your ability. And
Yeah.
you know
Well, in that, I don't think I asked you this. What, on the end result of the UCLA case, did any families get any compensation?
they
Did the
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. The families who just don't whose family member donated the bodies, and they heard about the stuff going on,
Mm-hmm.
the horror that they felt, they were in a class of themselves, and they got, they split a pot of like 150,000 or something like that. Um, and it was just basically because there was no really, it was because it involved dead bodies, but the actual duty, like with the mortuary and a customer, the other ones who had contracts to get the ashes back and didn't,
Mm-hmm.
like for example, they learned from spreading the ashes, it was somebody else's ashes. And we had one, oh, get this. We had one case where in the ashes there was a full set of buttons, okay, that were matched together by the expert.
How does that happen?
Well, because they're metal and they snap and they don't burn, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So there was a whole matching set of buttons, and they were traced back to cowboy western shirts that were made by a certain company.
Yeah.
And the family was like, "What? My dad would never wear a western shirt. He hated
Yeah.
country western." And so it was like, "Whoa," and then teeth. You have forensic odontist that would go in there and find there's a bridge of some sort in there, and my dad didn't have a bridge, and
Oh my
so
God. Then
so
you wonder, okay, so who is this person
who
really
is
that's
this?
sitting in my on my mantle? You know,
Yes.
is that, like, who is this?
Like, what the hell? So I
Yeah.
mean, it's just crazy. So universities, like, I just have this thing, and that's what got me out here on the Idaho 4 case. Because normally I've handled horrendous cases in medical malpractice, which are private, and I don't talk about them. And I when I started out suing public entities, which I had another horrendous case, involving social services. I had horrendous cases involving prisoners and CP at Child Protective Services when I was suing public entities. And then when I went to medical malpractice, it was so nice because they're confidential. Most of the settlements are confidential, and
Yeah.
you don't have to, and the attorneys are actually better to work with because they know it's about the experts. It's not really, it's
Right.
you know and so it's a very different world, and I kind of like it, this way. But yeah, my first few years, 4 years or whatever, I was out in the trying cases. I was out there, and i I was brand new. It was like, who is this girl? Like, that people become suspicious, and it's like, no, I'm just doing my fucking job.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I'm just
Did,
doing my job. Like, is
did you say I was going back to the beginning. Did you say what did you say about Rodney King?
Oh, the attorney that I worked for, that hired me right out of law school, he was one of the litigators with Milton Grimes, who handled the civil rights case against the officers involved in the Rodney King beating. It was a civil
Oh,
case,
okay.
civil
Okay.
rights case. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
wanted, oh my goodness. Okay. Uh, let's see. Caddy says, my
My sister.
sister, yeah, was cremated and I
Can you
have her
imagine?
ashes. No, I can't imagine. But that's what I'm saying. Now you have to wonder, is that her ashes? You
Yeah,
know?
so these people that went out on a boat, they had the ashes. They had this whole, ceremony, and they were out in the boat, and the ashes. It has her name, the lady's name, and everything. And then as they start, spreading the ashes, there's a little tag, an identification tag with the number and somebody else's name.
I mean, that would be devastating. It's hard enough to lose a loved one, and then you're carrying them out. And a lot of times, because I've said I want my ashes spread, on the ocean. Like, and I've told my kids, like, you can take the rest of my insurance money, like, and have a party, spend a week at the beach, whatever. But put me in the ocean, and and I had to look at one of them and say, I mean, hire a boat, go way out there. Like, don't dump them
Or just go
on
to the
the
beach.
sand. Yeah, like dump them right there on the edge. No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well,
But
it's a
so, because I know my kids, I know what they're thinking. Yeah, let's dump her out. Okay, it's a vacation now. Uh,
they can make it a vacation on a boat.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. I'm like, to me, burying people, the cost of, your end expenses and the funeral and like, it's ridiculous. So I'm like, yeah, I don't care. When I'm dead, I don't care. Go out, take that insurance money, have you a nice vacation, just make sure I'm out there. But yeah, I don't know. When it comes to the other things that are going on, it makes me wonder because we've talked about the prisoners losing body parts, and then, like you mentioned,
How
Kendrick
does that
Johnson.
happen? How does that
I,
happen?
yeah, well, now it's a federal case, so I hope we find out.
And then
But
the other person that had the newspaper stuffed.
yeah, and that case was really interesting. I mean, it look, if you missed the last one, his name was Kendrick Johnson. He was a high school student in Georgia. And I'm telling you, when I listened to the whole case while I was at work this past weekend, and if it doesn't smell to high heaven of cover up, nothing does. I mean, all ends of it. But basically, yeah, uh, he was he was definitely unalived. Okay, it was not an accident, and you can look at the pictures. You can like look, just reading the case, listen to it. It was not an accidental deceased,
That,
and so
yeah,
yeah,
that's scary.
and then he comes back. His body's got newspapers in it, and I'm like, okay, what on God's earth did they do with the organs? And I think somebody had said earlier, maybe it was occult in nature. I mean, I hate to be the one to say,
We don't know what
that,
I mean, that's the scary
but you
part.
don't know
Is the scary part is that you don't know what they're doing. Like
exactly.
I always thought in my case, like, what were they going to do with those spines, and who were they
Right.
transporting them to? Like, what can you possibly do? I mean, like, you know, I had a case, and I'll just mention this briefly, where a plastic surgeon was addicted to cocaine and he ended up losing his license. But he put some implants in my client that were shown all around in medical conferences as experimental ones,
Yeah.
and they were lying. He used them for all these medical conferences, and they were lying around in his office. And he was, coked up. He lost his license. It's public record, and he put him in my client. And did she get an infection? Boy, she did get an infection. She got a
I
massive
imagine.
infection. And so you have people who do these things, and you think they can't do it. It's like universities. Oh, no, no, no. Police, no, no, they can't do it. They just believe in them, and then you're just trashing the police and this and that. No,
Yeah.
these things happen.
They do
And
happen, and it's terrifying. And that just reminded me, though, because this has been so many years ago. A friend of mine was having, like, he was having a severe knee problem. I don't know if there was degenerative stuff, and they basically said he was having problems with, I think it was a ligament. And they gave him the option, which he didn't ever have the surgery, but they said, if we can get you back together, one of the best options for recovery and everything is to use a cadaver, use
hmm
this body part from a cadaver. And I didn't, back in those days, I didn't really think about things like this, but obviously, so if you're going to get it from a cadaver, that means somebody has probably donated their body, because you can't sell your body to science. So where are they getting those? I mean, that's that's a
yeah, it's
question.
it's it's like, when you I mean, I suppose there are people who donate their bodies to private research, not just public
Yes.
universities. So there's that. And so there's that. I mean, that they may donate their bodies to private companies, but yeah, that is a question. Like, where do they get that from? Like, could it be that, some of these people who have donated bodies to universities are getting stuff taken out and give it? I mean, who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
those ligaments are from organ donors, people who die and they donate their organs, but that's their
Yeah.
organs. I don't know about a ligament.
I mean, but yeah, yeah, it is. And they usually, I mean, from a hospital point of view, we've had people, honestly, not that many people donate their organs, but, and that's why there's such a shortage. But, uh, usually the things that they would harvest that I know about is, like, the liver, kidneys, maybe a pancreas, definitely the heart, um, eyeballs, or the
Lungs,
cornea.
maybe lungs.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But you don't really
Like a brain, you wouldn't transplant a brain.
know.
I mean,
Sometimes I feel like I need one.
but yeah, so those are the things, yeah, that are.
Yeah. But Samantha says skin harvesting is a whole thing too. Well, in these third world countries, and some are not even third world, like, China was doing it. Like I said, they were basically red rumming their prisoners so they could get their body parts. And they say they don't do it now. That was like back in 2009. And they're like, oh, we don't do that anymore. And I'm like, yeah, sure you don't.
Well, yeah,
uh
it's a scary, scary thing. What could happen to you after? I mean, if you're dead, you're dead. But I mean, your family members, like.
well, at least, I mean, I know you can't sell body parts, but it seems like you know if you're somebody's going to make money of it, to me it should go to the family, you know whatever. But and there are now, in case y'all didn't know, and I think it was struck down in Massachusetts, but they had it was on the court, or it was in the legal system. It was to they were going to give long-term prisoners like a year, or so, off of their sentences if they would donate a kidney. Now, I don't think it passed. I think they struck it down, but there was a lot of controversy over that because I mean, especially as a prisoner, let's say you've been incarcerated 30 years, and then you know that your health is going down, but maybe not all your body parts, but maybe you have something that's not so great. And you think, if I could get out and spend the last year of my life, or two
It,
with
it,
my family, you know, but
it's a
that's
choice,
yeah,
right?
but it's terrifying to put somebody in that position. Like, well, we'll let you out of jail early, but we're gonna need your kidney. Hello, uh, and then you know,
Yeah, that it is a terrible position to be in, to be bargaining with your organs.
yeah. I mean,
I mean, that's just insane.
it is, and I mean, in other countries, I was watching this documentary, and they were talking about Colombia and how people are literally just being harvested against their will. And I mean, they don't make it. It's not like, I think I said this last time, it's not like you wake up in a bathtub of ice. There was a movie like that though.
Yeah, saw.
uh yeah, it's horrifying. But usually the documentary, or the thing that I watched, said they don't wake up, and they, like, I'm not even going to go into the details of how they do it. It is very horrific. But basically, they just pick somebody and they harvest. And the problem is, and as I was talking to my family this weekend about, because we have a big problem in this area of trafficking, not just illegal substances, but it is a human trafficking point around here. And, I'm like, here's the problem. You have the undocumented, and we have a lot of undocumented immigrants in here, and who can even speak for them? We don't know, because the name they came in with is not
Oh yeah.
necessarily, and so most of our human trafficking is from people who can't defend themselves. They might not even speak the language, and then all of a sudden, they're trafficked for, and I hope to
Like
God
you
they're
can
not
stay
being.
like you can stay in the United States if you give your kidney to somebody. I mean,
Yeah,
oh, that would
I,
be crazy.
I mean,
But that's kind of like what the prison, like what you said, they were trying to do.
yeah,
It's just you can't be bargaining like that. That's
no, and I mean, I don't know if they're trafficking organs, or I know they're trafficking, you know,
Well,
the
there is a big problem with body parts even today. I mean, look, if you look into the Colorado case, there's a mortuary that had over 200 bodies, dead bodies in there, and they couldn't be identified. And some of those dead bodies that were identified, the families had received ashes for them, but
oh
their body
yeah.
was still,
Well,
yeah.
now it's been a bunch of years, but it was somewhere in Georgia. I believe it's either Tennessee or Georgia. They found this guy. He had, I mean, he was getting so much business, and he was supposedly cremating or whatever, burying people. It wasn't a cemetery though. I can't remember, but they literally, instead of, I mean, his incinerator broke. Okay, so they found body parts all over the place. Now, he was given I think he was given a life sentence, and this has been like 20 years ago. But even then, you have a problem with, you got all these bodies, so we don't even know what he was doing with all of them. And some of them were in such bad decomposition, and the family
How do you
think,
identify them? Yeah.
yeah, they couldn't, and it was such a horrendous thing. um but yeah, that's, I don't
It's
think we don't realize, we look at crimes like the standard crimes, the CSAM, the substances, whatever,
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
don't
right,
realize.
right. That's why I was listening to your show while I was working, and you were talking about the whole body part thing, and I'm like, whoa, like this is right up my alley. Um, I, I'm interested in cases like that. Like, I think it should be talked about more often. Um,
Yeah, and somebody said, I just had it highlighted. Let me go back. Somebody was talking about look into melanin harvesting, and I'm not really sure. I mean, I know what melanin is, but I didn't know you could harvest that. Have you ever heard of
That's
that, Yoli?
no color, like the coloring of your skin.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing that colors your skin. So I don't know. Oh, it was Detective Golden. Uh,
Yeah, I haven't. Oh, look into melatonin. Well, all this is so interesting. Like I'm gonna have to get off in a little bit because I'm house sitting. I'm
that's
I'm
fine.
I'm
That's
not
fine.
house sitting. I'm taking care of another dog with my dog,
Oh,
and
that's
they
fine. That's
need to
fine.
eat. But anyway, this was very interesting, and I'm glad you. And thank you for having me.
Oh,
Um,
thank you for coming and tell us about this case because I never heard about it, and I'm
Public
s-
university.
yeah, crazy, crazy. And yeah, I would love to talk.
We can
I'm
do
gonna
talk
keep.
again.
Yeah,
I'll send you the article about when they called me and they asked me about what I thought about this liver donation thing or liver transplant thing where they were selling livers to the highest bidder. And I was like, what? So, and it was the
yeah.
same dean. The same dean was involved in the UCI World Body Program. I'm like, what?
So you can imagine what they're doing that we
It's
don't know
cor-
about.
well, I don't want to cast light on UCI. It's the people,
Well,
It's
yeah,
yeah, it's the people, and that's why I'm saying you can never. After that case, I will never not believe anything. I mean, anything can happen because it's the people in there. It's not the institution. Just like the
right.
police, it's like the police. Like there's this defund the police. Okay, no, I think they need to provide more funding so
Yes,
they can screen the police better and have people who can be relied upon and not to do corrupt
yeah.
stuff, right? Um,
Exactly. And I come down, if you watch me, I come down hard on the Indiana police. But the truth is I work with police every
mhm.
day and they need to be paid better.
Yeah,
Okay?
there's a whole lot. Yeah,
Yeah, and there's a whole like it's bad. It's a bad situation that they're in. And so, yeah, we need good police people. And no, don't defund them. Give them way more money. Make it better, not
right,
worse.
right.
Um, but yeah, I don't mean to keep you, but yeah, Yoli, let's talk again. And
Yeah, we'll talk again.
I'll look up in some of these. If you have any interesting other cases that you want to talk about that you've
Yeah,
done, that'd be. I mean, I know you can't talk about your medical stuff, but I
yeah.
don't know.
Okay,
Let's.
I'll let you
Um.
know. With
All right.
CJ, I'm doing the Idaho 4 stuff all the time. I mean,
I know.
and the reason why I think I'm so addicted to that case is in part because of the victims and the shadiness, but the university. It's like
Right.
what I was dealing with, and it's like people are afraid, and it's like back then I wasn't afraid. I was like, and that's what it takes is somebody who's just not afraid, and that whole town
Yeah.
was stupid.
Well, people don't realize. I mean, we think of universities as just great places that we send our kids to be educated, but they don't look at and realize how much power a university wields, you know, and what happens to the town and stuff, whatever, because of universities. Not saying that every university is bad, but I don't think that it's been spotlighted enough what how that is affecting the Idaho case.
Yeah, and
Like,
the people that are involved in running the university, it's like
right.
it's just crazy.
It
Yeah.
is.
Anyway,
Yeah.
well,
But
it was nice of you to have me, and when I'm not busy, I my work is like I'm busy, 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 and then I'm not, and then I'm busy, busy,
yeah.
busy, and I'm not. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Just let me know when you have time if you have another case that you want to talk about, or I'm going to be looking into. Apparently, I just scratched the surface of this body harvesting thing. So, while I'm waiting for Delphi to do something, I'm going to be looking into this because it's horrifying, and I appreciate so much you coming and talking about. Uh, that was awesome,
no problem.
awesome.
It was nice to be on the show with you.
Oh, you too.
Okay, I have
All
some
right.
dogs to take care of right
Okay.
now. They're want to eat.
All right. I'll see
Okay,
you later.
okay, bye
All right.
bye.
Bye bye. Uh, okay. I'm going to take these headphones out because I don't need them now. I'm not going to keep y'all much longer either. Let me just look at some of the things that you're saying. Let me go back to the comments. Uh, yeah, I really do want to look into that melanin harvesting. I have, uh, it's horrific. Oh my God. I don't know. Do I even want to know this? Probably not, y'all. But look, there's a whole lot of things I don't want to know that I know. They live rent free in my head now. Um, yeah, I understand. Like, I hesitate too. I've thought about donating my body, my organs, and I am an organ donor. It's like not the whole body. Like, there's certain parts, like, you can have, but not the whole body. I'm also, I know medical students. I'm just gonna, whatever. And yes, they do save lives, and possibly other lives if you have more in circulation, because maybe people won't be trafficking them. Uh, okay, so grafting doctors prefer skin from a cadaver. I wonder why. I'm not, see, I never. I have a good friend whose daughter was young, and she passed away in a car accident, and she was an organ donor. And so that was great, for somebody, for several people. And you know it don't not donate your organs, but I will say this. I don't I know it's important for the doctors, and the future doctors, to see organs, but at the same time, like, I guess really look into it before you donate your whole body, okay, and see what impact that's going to have. What do they do with you when it's over? I don't know. I haven't. Let's see. Sometimes, let me pull this down. Sometimes I can't pull my comments down. Oh, Samantha said Florida has had several mortuaries that didn't dispose of the cadavers, correctly. I don't doubt it. Okay, and one of you, uh, let's see, have one kidney now, and I know I can live with one, but if something ever happened to my one kidney, I would need a donor. Yeah, I have a friend who donated her kidney, and she's relatively young, and she donated a kidney. It wasn't to a family member, but it was just because she's a wonderful person, and so she did. I'm sorry. All right, I don't want to miss what you're saying. I'm having, it's like great. Uh, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad y'all are showing Yolie some love. I hope she saw all that. Wasn't that interesting? Oh, adrenochrome harvesting. I do know about that, Detective Golden. Yeah, yeah. That's. I had a conversation with somebody a few weeks ago about that. Um, if you don't know what it is, I'm just gonna say, don't look. Don't look. Um, is it real? I don't. I don't know if everything is 100%. Um, like some people will say, as far as harvesting adrenochrome, but what I do know is, before you could actually medically harvest that kind of thing, um, bottle it, whatever. Um, it is a real thing, okay? And there are people, cults, I'll just go out and say that, cults that do things to increase the adrenochrome for very real reasons, okay? That I do know 100%. Is all of the ways they do it? I don't know. I don't know. Uh, just, uh, just, yeah. Don't look, unless you want to have nightmares. that you will never get over. So, uh, true crime completely. I mean, it is true crime, but it's a completely different thing. I would say, don't look. Just don't look. Um. All right. Uh. The head area. Oh. Okay. Y'all are making some very good comments here. I'm not going to keep you much longer. Oh wait, let me see. Hello, Janie Lane. When I was working in an inner city ER, law enforcement would come in to hang out and have coffee with us. Oh yeah, hey, there's some great law enforcement. So I know. I rag on Indiana all the time. I know I do, but guess what? There are some great ones. And like I said before, I have to believe that there's some good ones in Indiana. I hope I'm not wrong about that, but um, yeah, I have to believe that. Oh, yeah, Detective Golden, you came across it unexpectedly in 2016. Yeah, I um I did know about it before then, but certainly in 2016 I know exactly what you're talking about. It The information was far more plentiful. Uh but yeah, it is a thing. I'm not sure about like I'm going to look into the other stuff. Um is there anything else? Let's see. Delphi, nothing going on right now. Hey, I'm going to throw this out here if y'all didn't know. I found this horrifying. Um I've Apophis took down all the videos except for one, I think, and I watched that one. Did y'all see that? Some people love I and some people don't. Some people agree, some people don't. But here's the thing: it doesn't matter whether you loved it or hated it or whatever. What concerns me about this is so many people leaving Delphi. I'm not leaving Delphi, but I'm talking about other things, basically because I'm not going to rehash the same things that we already know. And when there's some new information, we'll do that. Yeah, certainly. If people have information, you want to talk about it, you want to send it to me, whatever, we'll talk about it. But you know, it makes me very sad. I see a lot of creators. Their channels aren't shut down, but their channels are behind the scenes. There have been a lot of changes, and so that always makes me sad. Um, and I know some people do it for their mental health. I get that. I get that. So if y'all are in my Discord, and I haven't even been talking about, uh, having anybody join. There's a reason. Like, look, I still have my Discord. If you want to be in Discord and you want to talk, it's certainly a good place for private messaging. But I try to stay off Discord. I'll just be honest with you because it is a pit. Mine, I usually try to keep mine like really calm, sweet, nice. And if you want to talk there, that's fine. If you don't have a link, let me know and I'll send you one. I do answer anything, any messages, anything that anybody says in Discord. I will see it quicker than anything else. Um, oh, by the way, yeah. Oh, talking about finding stuff. Yeah, you can't use Google. Do you remember there was a time you could? It was a very short window of time you could use Google to find that stuff. Uh, I use Google and I also have Brave. The Brave. If y'all don't know, there is a what do you call it? It's like Google. It's a search engine. Um, instead of Safari, Google, and stuff like that, there is a search engine that you can use called Brave, and it is pretty much unfiltered as far as it gives you the news that nobody wants you to know. So if you want to see, I definitely use that for research. Um, uh, yeah, that's why a lot of Delphi people are running. Uh, Oh, you're about to delete Discord. You know what I hate about uh, what I hate about not having Discord is I have a members only tab and nobody's really been talking in there. Um, I would love to have a circle of people that I really felt, safe talking to. And it's a nice place. It can be a great place to talk. But I think even though there's a lot of people in there, nobody's talking. And I think it's because, and I understand I've been on the receiving end of that too, because although it's private, it's like a group chat. You still take screenshots of it. So I think everybody's gotten to the point where we're just not talking. Still have my email though. If you want to email me, it's silkyand southern@gmail. Carol said Bing. Yeah, I use Bing sometimes. I do. Uh, all right, Carol. Seriously, I would love to talk to you. We're talking about the Nephilim. I know that's out there for a lot of people. I bet. I know from your past history of family and all that kind of stuff. I know you know a lot of stuff. And, it's just if you feel comfortable talking about it, that would be great. Um, yeah. Yeah, just Deb, I'm afraid to talk unless it's a private message. Exactly. Um, can you unjoin channels? Can't you unjoin channels? Yes, I can. Uh, Sometimes there are people in other channels that I feel like I may want to talk to on other servers at some point in time, and they're not on mine. So I am in a lot of discords. I do not read them most of the time. Most of the time, I do not. Occasionally, there's something that I need to know, but I don't know. It's hard to talk. It's hard to talk anywhere, especially about Delphi. So anyway, all right. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed Yoli. Like if you have any other things or comments, things you want to look at, if you find any weird stuff about harvesting or any of these weird things going on with, God, can you believe that was the University of California? She said in Irvine, and then of course LA. Uh, what bothers me is, like I said, if these are the things that have come to light, what is that cat doing? If these are the things we know about, what are the things we don't know about? Okay, that is what's scary and shocking and horrifying. All right, I'm working long hours this week, so I probably will not be back until, I don't know if I'm going to do an open thing on Sunday. Depends on what I find. I will be doing a members only on Sunday night. So tell me what you want to talk about. We can tell our Christmas horror stories. Did you have a great Christmas? Was it bad? What funny thing happened? Did you get a terrible gift? I've gotten some bad ones. I've gotten some really bad ones. So if you want to talk about that, let me know. If you got anything else, just put it, and I'll put a link there closer to Sunday. All right. I am going to call it a night too. Thank you so much for being here. And oh yeah, let me just say this before we leave. You said this before, and I did not. Uh because I was looking at Kendrick Johnson. That's what I did this past weekend to study that case. Um Looking into Chicago busted harvesting rings. I can't even, y'all. I can't even. All right. I'm glad you all came, and I hope you have a great uh weekend. Weekend. God, I don't even know what day it is. Are y'all like that in the holidays between Christmas and New Year's? I don't know what day it is, where I'm supposed to be going, and what I'm doing. Oh, Sunday's gonna be New Year's Eve, right? Oh, okay. I don't know. Y'all all might be busy, but if you're not, we can get together. Just let me know. Happy New Year to all of y'all. I will see you later. Stay safe, whatever you do. Just stay silky. Okay, bye bye.